So, Stephen Lucas, can you name one lesson or idea from abroad that's helped you or your colleagues?
So certainly one area of lesson is around antimicrobial resistance. And I, particularly was influenced by a discussion I had with United Kingdom's Dr. Sally Davies, who was the chief medical officer, and inspired by her leadership and reach in terms of the need not only for creating greater public awareness about the risks of our antibiotics not working from overuse, but as well getting at and encouraging the UK government to have a study undertaken about the kind of economics and greater importance, for the economy and society of focusing on this challenge and then pushing it globally. And I think that leadership and kind of recognition of working at multiple levels has inspired and informed Canada's approach on antimicrobial resistance.
Yeah, I interviewed her nearly 10 years ago and she was talking about it then.
Yeah.
Are there any projects or innovations from Canada that might be valuable to your peers overseas?
So I'll mention two briefly. One is an area that we've worked on in recent years to put in place a framework for more agile regulations for pharmaceuticals and other health products, effectively creating what we call a regulatory sandbox, or an area where we define the rules to ensure the safety and quality and effectiveness of new innovations, kind of based on their characters rather than pigeonholing them in traditional pharmaceutical or medical device frameworks. Just recognizing the intersection of different, artificial intelligence, digital, and drug delivery technologies, for example, today. Another area is on the side of nature conservation, where we created a challenge to double the amount of protected areas in this country and worked in terms of innovative ways of involving our Indigenous people in helping develop and effectively own and advance new protected areas supported by the charitable sector and private sector through a matching fund request. And I think through innovation in who's involved in helping protect nature and involving Canada's Indigenous people as kind of the original and ongoing stewards of the land, were really interesting innovations that we think could be of interest and application in other parts of the world.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. How can we improve the ways that senior public officials work with and learn from their peers overseas?
So certainly one of my reflections and experience coming through COVID has been the importance both of structured dialogue but informal interaction with peers in other countries. So with G7 and other partners, we have regular engagement, but as well following up, routinely with colleagues in the UK, United States, Australia, and other jurisdictions has created kind of great insights in peer learning, if you will. And, through fora that had been established in, sunny days, such as the International Coalition of Medical Regulators, now is coming into its fore in these stormy days on COVID, because of those structures being put in place. So I really think it's that combination of some structured dialogues in different bilateral and multilateral fora, including on a thematic basis, but also the more informal relationships. So you can pick up the phone or a Zoom call and learn from a colleague as we go through this unprecedented territory in COVID.
Yes, it's a huge question. You might have to pick a bit of it to answer. But what's the biggest global challenges in your field over the next few years?
So perhaps I'll note a couple. One is we're going to be living with COVID, understanding its impacts, understanding, as they emerge, hopefully, the effectiveness and safety profiles of different vaccines. And so, the sequela to living with COVID, the impact of the pandemic, I think will remain and drive broader reflection in global public health, in pandemic preparedness and response, in vaccine development and distribution equitably on a global basis, and on focus of investment and effort in terms of the health of our populations and the critical interlink with, the economies and social fabrics in our countries. I think, as I noted in a previous answer, some of the issues that have taken a less prominent role but are equally challenging, such as antimicrobial resistance, remain. And I think there is a risk of a sustained focus only on pandemics and COVID in terms of some of these other challenges. Another one I'll mention that, I'm both personally very committed to, and I think, for which there has been some good global work done, is around mental health and well-being. And, again, there will be impacts. We're already noticing that in Canada associated with COVID on the mental wellness of Canadians and vulnerable populations. But I think it'll be an area where we need to double down on efforts, both nationally and internationally, in the coming years as well.
Thank you. And finally, question is, what is your favorite book?
Well, I'm one of those Tolstoy fans, so Anna Karenina is probably my favorite all-time book. But recently I read a book called The Invention of Nature, a great telling of the story of Alexander von Humboldt by Andrea Wolf. And given my interest in nature, in ecosystems, and in geology, in terms of my background, this was a fascinating tale that took us across multiple continents and really told the story of the birth of kind of a systems approach to understanding nature, which was a tale well worth reading.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.